Loads of engine coolant that spilled down my face and in my mouth. Anyways, at least we got the alternator rod on. I had to undo both bolts just to get this nut on. It was absolute chaos, but I'm glad it's finally over and done with. Anyways, welcome to Jake's Car Audio. Another day, another opportunity. This is a video of me installing my dual alts. They're 210 amp Mitsubishis, which is 420 amps of alternator power for my audio system. Much more of an upgrade from the standard stock 90 amp alts, which really wasn't up to the task. Here I am underneath my car, fitting the bottommost alt. There's always a tight space problem to put up with when working on cars. So here's my boot currently. I'm gonna make a sub box for it soon. I'll show you the subwoofers later in this video. We got MDF floor, expander foam filled in all of the gaps. You got sound deadening. It does look messy, but it's a work in progress. Handy old tools there, lovely stuff. These are just some spare 6x9s I had laying around that I managed to install with a MDF adapter that I made. Really basic. There's my UASA 105 amp hour AGM batteries. They're all wired up with 0 gauge ring terminals. Handy stuff. They're crimped with a YQK hydraulic crimper. I've had this for quite a few years and honestly it still works fine. It has interchangeable dies, so if you're crimping huge wires, small wires, speaker wires, power wires, it's up to the job. It works fine. I'd recommend it. So enough of that. Let's go to the front engine bay. Now the bottom alternator is installed for the bottom 2 bolts of it, but I still need to get this little bolt done there. That's a really awkward space, I must admit, but I had to make this weird looking hybrid tool just to do up the bolt. It was pretty tricky. It took me at least half an hour just to install that single bolt, but we are finally done and finally ready to move on to the topmost alternator. Excuse the welding job. It's not great, but I really am not used to welding. It's sturdy as hell though, I can say that. Now the bottommost alternator is done, we can let her down. Sweet. She's sitting low, I must say. I love it. Alright, now time to install the topmost alternator. This was so tricky. I had to take out the headlight and actually cut a piece of the plastic just to get it to fit. Even then it's such a tight fit. So awkward. This is the bolt which the alternator will swing on, should I say? Rotate on. Installing the nuts for these and the washers for these takes such a long time, so if it doesn't fit or it's not right in the end, it's frustrating because honestly it just takes ages to install these nuts. But we'll do it, no problem. Tighten it up by hand first as usual. I actually had to cut off the fins of these with an angle grinder just for it to fit, and even then it's such a tight fit. This cramped engine bay is a bit frustrating to work with, but I made it work. It's rotatable, mainly to adjust the tension on the belt. There's me installing the first bolt. It was pretty awkward and I did try and use this smaller 13mm socket, but this long 30mm socket worked much better in the end, so I decided to use that. Again, it's just such a cramped space, it's a bit awkward, so you're limited with the tools. Alright, now for the final washer and nut, but before that, that's where we need to install the negative cable. And this is the positive post for the positive cable. As you can see, they're coming from the battery there. Let's just grab those quickly, thread them through, wire them up. We'll get it sorted. I do need to zip tie those in place to make sure it's all safe. And there we go. There's the negative cable ready to fit. A little bit awkward space, but everything's doable here. washer for the negative cable, and a nut. Now we'll tighten it by hand to begin with, because we don't want it too tight, because we need the alternator to rotate for the belt tension, which will be shown later in this video. And once it's in place, we can tighten it up with a tool though. All good. Alright, let's test if it rotates. Yeah, seems to be okay. Now for the positive post and the positive cable. As you can see, I've got some black nylon washers there because they didn't come with an insulating post with the alternator that I bought. They're from Amazon, it's quite cheap, and yeah, it works. Now to thread the positive cable for the positive post. Lovely stuff. And now for the nut, let's quickly balance that on there. We'll get the nut, which has a built-in washer on it. This one came with the alternator, thankfully. Let's thread that on there. Remember to always tighten your connections for maximum safety. This is a belt that I ordered. It's a custom measured belt. It's a non-stretch serpentine K-section belt. So we'll just install that on the pulleys and wrap that round, get that all installed before we tension up the top alternator. It's a bit tricky to do this one-handed, so let's thread that down there. Cool. Now it just needs to go over the idler pulley. There we go, sorted. Last but not least, the crankshaft pulley, it needs wrapping around. It is that large pulley there. We need to sit it on the top, biggest one. Since the belt is loose and the alternator isn't tensioned, it's pretty easy to do. Otherwise you would need a belt removal tool of some sort, or undo the tensioner. Sweet, looking good. All mounted on the idler pulley, perfect, nice. The alt is adjustable, much more than shown here, but because the belt is on, we don't have as much movement. But it is ready to tension and tighten up. We use that alternator tensioning rod there, that was from Amazon too. Really handy piece of kit. All you need to do is rotate it. It has a flat bit in the middle to fit a spanner on, and you just keep rotating it outwards and it stretches out. Easy to do, very useful, very sturdy and strong too. Now we just need to thread the last bolt through. This is where the alternator rod will sit on, basically. Adding a couple of nuts and washers as usual. Tighten it up by hand first. Okay, sweet, all sorted. Now we just need to tighten the nuts up outwards so the alternator tensioning rod is sitting tight and flush. There we go, nice. So this is a quick sneak peek of the garage. Got all my handy tools there. Nice 4-channel amplifier. That's my stock alternator. It's only 90 amps. It's a puny little thing. Honestly, needed much more alternator power. There's a sneak peek at the door card build. Got 4 times 6.5 inch flies. They'll be powered with that silver amplifier you just saw. Both door cards are done. This is the reveal of the subs. These things slam. They're base face SPL 12.2s. Exciting stuff. I can't wait to install these. There's my handy little welder that I made the brackets with. It's an Impax Arc 140. It's a really cheap welder for what it does, to be honest. It's a stick welder. A little bit tricky if you've never welded before, but honestly, you can pick it up quite easily. There's a ground clamp there. Anyways, back to the alternator job. So we put the belt on, installed the tensioner rod, but we haven't tightened up the tensioner yet. So the belt is quite loose. But once we adjust the tensioning rod, the belt will tighten up and it will be safe and ready to start the engine basically. Let's sort that out. There's a flat bit there where you put your spanner. Easy to do, it really is. Okay, so after that's tightened up, you can see it's extended now and the belt is stretched out, not slack at all. Perfect. Looks lined up and quite accurate to me. Sweet. Looking forward to it. So this is the messy wiring that we've got at the moment. External alternator regulator. It's a Mechman model. A bit messy, but I'll clear it up soon. It's only a test bit. This is a space where I think I'll make a mounting bracket for the alternator regulator, and the fuse holder's just hanging there. So it definitely needs to be screwed somewhere, of course. We'll make that soon actually. I think I'll make that today. This is the first sketch up of the mounting bracket out of cardboard. I did change the design a few times. It's just testing, seeing what works best, seeing what looks good, seeing what fits the engine bay really. Measuring out the mounting bracket. Double checking the measurements from the template we made. It's easy to work with cardboard because you can just, you know, cut the general shape and then measure it out on whatever material you're using. I decided to use a handsaw for this because it didn't take long to cut and it probably would have took me just as long to get out my power tool, so I thought, you know what, let's just go back to the handy old handsaw. Just using MDF 18mm. It will be sealed with wood glue and paint. I wouldn't recommend just using raw MDF in your engine bay. This is a template versus the cutout. Looks pretty accurate to me. It did need a couple minor adjustments further, but aside from that, it was a good go. And there we go. As you can see, the top left corner's cut out too. Some minor adjustments. Does need some wood glue. Drilled and countersunk. Sweet. I just had a delivery of a compound saw. I've never actually had one of these before, so I was pretty excited to open it. It'll be used for cutting 2x4s at 45 degrees and other woods at 45 degrees especially. It's hard to do it accurately with a jigsaw, so I thought, you know, one of these would do. It was fairly cheap, brand new as well, being Guild. It's not a special brand, but honestly it does the job for sure. There's the mounting bracket before I've painted it. There's the 45 that I tested with the compound saw, and it will hold the weight of the fuse holders and external alternator regulator. Anyways, I appreciate you watching. If you've got a car audio system of your own, or you're curious about dual alternators, I would love to hear the comments. Any questions, any suggestions, any video ideas, just throw them in the comments and I'll do my best to reply to you. Thanks for watching and have a brilliant day. Cheers.